And we are live. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is a beautiful day in New York. I hope you're all having a great day as well. Thank you very, very much for being here with me. And we are going to start right off. I am going to ask each member of the panel to present themselves, talk a little bit about themselves, and we go from there. So I am going to start with Nick.
So, what's up, Josana? She hit me up, so I decided to join. This will be a great discussion. You guys know, especially with this year, one of the primary goals we have at Revolutionary Blackout is bringing movements together and discussing ideas on how we can challenge the establishment without relying on top-down structures, relying on politicians. And I'm interested to learn more as well. But when I hear about stuff like student loan debt strikes, that's just one like tool that we have as a resistance, as a proletariat resistance that doesn't necessarily rely on politicians or electoral structure. So I look forward to hearing this conversation. Thank you for calling me, Josiah. This is gonna be fun. This is gonna be fun.
Afini.
Hi, my name is Afini. My pronouns are she, her. I'm an organizer with Freedom Fighters DC. I do all different types of organizing advocacy, and I actually just signed up to be a part of the Debt Collective's like Day of Action for the like outreach committee, the coalition committee thing. So see y'all in the team calls. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I'm really big on direct action and just if we're going to continue to shove electoral politics down people's throats, let's at least be like France and be confrontational about it. Um, but yeah, so I'm super psyched to be here, super excited to learn from all of you. And yeah, thanks, Josana.
Thank you for being here. You know, I'm a fan of yours, and it's always an honor when I get to sit with you and discuss subjects like that. We're gonna move to Haja that chose to not show her face, and it's okay too. Hi, Haja. How are you?
Hi, I hope you can hear me. It's my first time doing this. I'm Hadja. So Rosanna, it's funny because I didn't realize you were from New York because I am from Brooklyn too, but I'm not there right now. I'm like in and out. But thank you for inviting me. We connected on Twitter from just like talking about a bunch of different things, and we have a group together, a bunch of us who connected about student loans and all these things. And we were just like talking about it in the beginning about what we wanted to do. And then we got connected with the Debt Collective and then so many other things. That's just kind of how I got into this. And I am a recent grad. So there's that too. The student loan needs to go like soon, immediately. But yeah, I hope that's like enough. I don't want to say too much about myself. It's lots of issues, but yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I am gonna go to Hannah. Thank you for being here, Hannah.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. My name's Hannah. I use she, her pronouns. I am one of the co-founders of the Debt Collective. My pocket of my family has about $80,000 just in student debt alone. If you expand out to my siblings, my husband's siblings, we're probably approaching like $500,000 of student debt. But I'm also a college professor. So every day I'm indebting more and more students, right? And I guess I also just wanted to say at the Debt Collective, while we are on this active campaign to abolish all student debt and make public college free again, but this time not just for white people, we're also an org that's about using debt as a form of leverage across all debt types to really undo racial capitalism, right? So whether that's medical debt, whether that's credit card debt, whether that's housing debt, whether that's carceral debt. So we have a really live student debt campaign right now, but I just wanted to name that it's part of a much broader systemic problem that we're trying to tackle by building power, right? Just like Nick said, we're not begging any elected officials for anything. We're trying to build power using debt as leverage.
I thank you, Hannah, so much for being here and all the work you do. I'm gonna go to Fred. Hey, Fred.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. He, him pronouns. And yeah, I'm working with the Debt Collective as well. and I've been organizing for, well, ever since I graduated from University of Washington. So definitely comfortable in this space. And yeah, like Hannah said, I mean, obviously debt disproportionately affects Black folks and especially Black women. So this is a racial issue, and yeah, excited to talk more about the strategies we can use to fight back.
Thank you so much for being here and our work you do. I am now going to go with Ahmed. Hello, Ahmed. How are you?
Hi, Josana. Hi, everyone. My name is Ahmed, and I usually reside in Northern Virginia, but I'm currently in Egypt. So if my connection is a little shaky, I apologize. I We started talking about student loan strike on some Twitter Spaces, and we're trying to organize specifically towards that because I feel like this moment is a national like a national moment that we could seize on because with the moratorium with the with the student loan strike I mean with the student debt moratorium, like we haven't paid anything in almost 2 years and the economy didn't collapse, so like why can't they abolish all this debt for everyone that's affecting 44 million Americans? It's not a small chunk of American. There's baby boomers that are still paying into their student loans. And that's not okay because education is a human right. You shouldn't have to go into extreme amounts of debt just to seek higher education. So I'm really excited to be a part of this panel, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. We are going to go with Braxton. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. My first language is Portuguese, so some sounds like when there's like too many consonants together, it's a little difficult. But please educate me.
No, it's totally fine. My name is Braxton, he, him pronouns. Um, I'm also an organizer with the Debt Collective, so I work with Fred and Hannah every day. I also am in a household of student debtors. My two parents and two siblings and we all have student debt. I personally have maybe $40,000. I really should check my account, but around $40,000 worth of student loans from graduating from an HBCU in North Carolina. And so now I'm organizing with the Debt Collective to make college free and also eliminate student loan debt, but also really excited to uplift all the other work where we do around other debt types as well. And, eliminating people's debt, medical debt, carceral debt, some other debt types that we're working on. I'm really excited to uplift those as well. But student debt that's a big one. So we're almost on the edge of winning cancellation. So we're almost there. Excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you all for the work you do. Thank you all for taking the time to be here. So I was standing here before we started that. So I come from a country that has in its constitution education as a right that should be provided. And if I can butcher in the translation, it actually says there is a paragraph, is the fourth paragraph of that. Forgot the name of the thing with the numbers. The fourth paragraph of that says, education should be public and accessible of quality to all. And that's in the Constitution. So I have never paid $1 to study in one of the best universities in my country. I do not have a debt because the way we go, like in countries like Brazil or anywhere, education is a form of, like, first of all, you're building yourself as a human being, but also in life, you're starting a life. Like you chose a profession and you're gonna study for, and then you're gonna start a life. And what was like always like mind blowing to me is the fact that in the US you start your life in debt, and you start your life negative. It's like you're starting your life minus 50,000. And I would like to understand a little bit how does that work. So maybe Hannah can start with that for me.
Yeah, I'd be happy to start because here I am, the college professor who's turning around and indebting all my students, right? Even though I hold student debt myself. So the first thing I'll say is that actually in the United States, public college, we still have things called public colleges, right? I teach in the UC system, the University of California system. It's still called the largest public university system in the world. And that used to mean tuition free, right? I send my kids to the public school across the street. We know what that means. I don't pay tuition. Public means tuition free, right? We still call the UC system, the University of Michigan system, the New Mexico system, the CUNY system, and SUNY system in New York. We call them public. And that was because historically they were tuition free when they started, right? But for whom were they tuition free, right? That's the question. They're historically white colleges and universities. And when they were primarily for white men, they were tuition free. And then you see this explosion of activism on college campuses across the country, right? You see the Black Panthers rising up at Merritt College in Oakland. You see the women's movement, the anti-imperial movements against the Vietnam War, the Brown Berets. You see people also on college campuses saying, I want to hear my history taught in your schools. I want to see people who look like me as your professors, right? In the wake of all of that campus uprising across the 60s, this dude named Ronald Reagan becomes the governor of California in the 70s. And Ronald Reagan literally says, I don't have the quote at my fingertips, but it's, or my tongue tip, but it's something like, let's see how much they want to protest once we start charging them tuition. So in other words, as soon as Black and brown folks say, we demand anti-imperial educations, we demand Black and brown professors, we want to hear our history taught, they say, oh yeah, then pay for it. Right? It was tuition free before when it was mostly for white men. And now I call it, sorry, Prince, but the college is formerly known as public, right? Because now they're no longer public. Now tuition and fees have skyrocketed. So one of the things that we're trying to create at the Debt Collective is that historical memory that public college in this country too used to mean free college. So we have to get that back, but not just how it was for white folks, right? But for everybody, a truly free and liberating education.
Awesome. How like how does it work? Like I'm gonna go with Afeni. I'm gonna start with Afeni, and I want to know like how does it work? Like, so do you apply for university? Like in my country, you have to take a test. You take a test, and you have like a certain amount of points that you have to reach, and then you apply for the universities where you will be based on that test. Not in your school grades. So that's good for like kids that had problem in school grades or like, and then if you decide to go to university just now, they're not going to go back into your high school grades and check it. So I want to know how does it work? Like you apply for university and then they have to approve you and they already send to you how much it is and like how is that?
Okay, so I went to like a school in Anne Arundel County. Excuse me. I went to a school in Anne Arundel County, Maryland, which is like, like an upper middle class, mostly white people type of situation. My school was a blue ribbon school. So my college journey started in high school because I was in the AP program. All of those tests you have to pay for, and those count as college credits. So you're paying for, if you're in the AP program, you're paying for that. If you want to apply for colleges, you're paying for application fees. If you do not have the money to take the AP test, you are not taking it, and you cannot get the college credit for that class. And there were a lot of Black people, a lot of brown people. Well, there were 58 Black people altogether in my school, but a lot of us were very intelligent. A lot of us in the AP program, and some of us could not afford to pay for the AP test. So some of us just lost out on credits. Like we just lost our college credits. So if you can't afford to pay application fees, if you're not lucky enough to get a waiver, which I was lucky enough to get a waiver, so I didn't have to pay for AP tests or my college application, my first 5 college applications. After that, you have to start paying. And yeah, like that's the cost beforehand. And then if you get accepted to this college, if you go into, hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. I could not finish college, number one, because I just really wasn't sure what I was going to do. And number two, because I could not afford it. I was about to be homeless. I joined the military. A lot of people join the military to go to college. I got kicked out before I get my GI Bill. So, shit happens. But when I went back to college this last year in 2020, oh wow, that was 2 years ago now. In 2020, I got more debt that again could not afford working full time. So now I have like, I think it's like $6,000 or $7,000 in debt because I went to community college that I cannot afford to pay, and I can't afford to finish yet because I'm living paycheck to paycheck now. So that's basically how it works, is even whether or not you graduate, whether or not you can afford it, you have to give this money up if you want to get anywhere, anywhere at all.
So they can actually, that's what it looks for me, like to me, like, so they can actually, like, because I saw people saying that they would take your wages, they would take money out of a paycheck. How does it, when you realize that you can't pay for it? Freddie, how does it go? Like, how does it work? Like, when you, so you have the total tuition for the whole of the time that you will be university, or per year? And then after, when you realize that you can't pay, what are the consequences for that?
I just want to say one quick thing. There was a comment on here that someone said. He said he was a boomer and that they were garnishing his social security payments. Like, so they'll garnish you no matter how old you are, no matter what you have. So it's very predatory.
Yeah, thanks, Ahmed. That's totally right. And I mean, I have had friends that went to for-profit colleges, which are some of the most predatory, and taking out hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt. And even those colleges, I mean, a lot of them aren't accredited. A lot of them, will promise you the world, but in the day, you really can't use that certificate or degree. So yeah, at a certain point, if it goes to collections, then they'll actually take it straight out of your paycheck. So yeah, that's one of the very sinister ways that the system works to keep people down. So yeah.
Wow.
Thank
um
you, Joe Biden, by the way. That's
what?
Joe Biden and his bankruptcy bill that did that. But go ahead, Josana. I just want to add that.
No. I want anybody that wants to jump in right now to just jump in, because like, I'm being selfish. I just gathered a panel and I'm like, so how does it work here? Like, learning. I'm truly learning, because like, in my mind is like, it's surreal that like you go into so much that because you chose to have education, which should be provided to you, because this, like, the Declaration of the Human Rights has education there as one of the human rights. So this is not an exception because my country is cool and they put that there. No, they base their constitution after the military government in the declaration. So education, housing, food, and healthcare are basic human rights. And we are being deprived of all of those here in the US. So the reason why I gathered this panel is because I want to go deeper on that and maybe bring
Josana,
folks to what?
you mind if I add this context as well, since we have an open
No,
panel?
no.
I wanna share with you guys the consequences of the Democratic vote, because what we are talking about right now, this is direct legislation that Joe Biden endorsed that led to this problem that we have them right now. How Biden helped create the student loan debt problem he promised to fix. The former vice president, now president, backed a 2005 bill that stripped students of bankruptcy protections and left millions in financial stress. So this is the policy of the Democratic Party. This is class war. And this is why I'm strongly supportive of any direct action by the proletariat that fights against this. Because I am of the belief, and we talk about this all the time, this is not a problem we're voting yourself out of. This is a problem that representatives run away from. We got to come together as a collective to fight against this. So yeah, Biden played a pretty big role in that. Looking, and I wrote about this in great detail when I talk about how Biden and his administration was something I feared. He literally created the system that make it harder for you to forgive your medical debt, made it harder for people to, as we explained here, cancel the student loan debt. So this is the economic that neoliberalism advocate for, that we have to push against. This new usury, this new forcing the middle class and the working class to be in debt, right? Go into debt, or you be like the homeless that is designed to fear the middle class, so the middle class will go into debt. It's a rigged system. But I won't pass it back to the panel. I just want to add that piece of data to the conversation.
I actually read an article related to that recently about how actually private loans can be discharged from bankruptcy, but it only applies to some of them, even though they've been telling people that you cannot declare bankruptcy and have your private loans discharged. That is not true. Maybe I can send someone the article and they can pull it up, but they've been lying, and they knew that they've been lying. And the private student loan industry has been going after people even after their loans were discharged, because people don't know that they don't have to pay. I'm actually going to send the article because there's a lot more to it than that. But they're even lying about the terms, and they know that people don't know their rights. They know that people probably don't have the legal cost and all the amount of time and money to go into suing them and all these things. So they take advantage of that, and they've been doing that for years.
Yeah, Haja, I just wanted to say I'm so glad you brought that up, and also what Nick is saying about Biden. So all forms of debt are different, right? The creditor is different. The general debtors is different. Student debt is unusual because something like 98% of that $1.8 trillion is owed to the feds, right? It's owed to the federal government. It's not Bank of America. It's not a mortgage holder. It's not the bail bonds company, right? It's the federal government. So what Biden passed, right, from Delaware, which is like the credit capital of the United States, right? He is like a class warrior for the creditor class, always has been. But what Biden passed is really to protect creditors, right? So private student loans, that small 3 or 4% that don't come from the federal government, but that come from private banks, can absolutely be dischargeable in bankruptcy. That's absolutely right. But that other 98% of $1.8 trillion can't be, because it's owed to the federal government. However, at the Debt Collective, we've won about $9 billion in student debt abolition for folks who hold that debt from for-profit colleges using something called defense to repayment. So it was a piece of legal mutual aid that we put online. 82,000 people used it over the course of 2016. And this is how you move elected officials without begging elected officials, right? You get 82,000 people to do something, and suddenly they had to change the law without us being like, go change the law, right? So now actually, if you hold debts from a for-profit college, you have a clearer road toward that debt abolition. But the problem is the whole system is fucking rotten, right? We don't want to just pick up for-profit colleges, as Fred said, are the most predatory. But as Josana has been saying, we should not have to go into debt for any kind of an education. So that's why we are excited, right, to build up to a strike. And I would love, I'm going to be quiet, but I would love to talk about that, because the consequences of default, as we were just saying, are super real, right? Garnished wages, garnished tax returns, garnished social security, taking away your public benefits, right? Preventing you, if you're, we all know, if we have a trash credit score, hard to rent an apartment, right? So at the Debt Collective, we try to be really vigilant about people's differential vulnerability to those outcomes, and always give folks who want to organize multiple routes to build power. But we are ready to strike, and we actually have a whole working group working on it now, including safe ways to get to $0 repayment, income-based repayment, right? Deferment, forbearance, going back to school. There's all kinds of ways to get to zero without defaulting. And we have always said, since our first student debt strike with for-profit people, if you pay $0 a month, you're on strike. right? You don't necessarily have to suffer those consequences. So I'd love to, later in the panel, I'd love to talk about that.
I just wanted to add to the Joe Biden, because he's the reason we're going through this. He also promised to forgive at least $10,000, which he has not done or seemed to be planning on doing. With this, just a signature, he could cancel that, but he's choosing not to. Even though it's politically in his favor. I mean, he's underwater right now. No one is excited about him, so I don't know why he's not doing it, but he promised it. He's not doing it. And then you have another talking point that even the Democrats use about, like, oh, if we forgive all student debt, like we're forgiving the student debt of like the kids of wealthy people. And it's like, hold up, the kids of wealthy people didn't go to public schools. Like they definitely didn't go to a public university. So why is that being used as a talking point to like go against canceling debt for so many people that do need help? And why must there be so much means testing? I mean, it should be universally affordable for anyone, even if wealthy or poor. If you're going to a public university, I mean, they're getting funding from taxpayers. Like, so it just, and Joe Biden, come on, man, like $10,000, like that's the bare minimum, and you're not even doing that. You're not gonna get my vote. I'm just saying that off the bat.
I think
Yeah.
go ahead, Penny.
I'm gonna say, I just think it's crazy because not like, let's just be very clear. Wealthy children do not take out loans. Like, they don't need to take out loans. Either number one, their daddy donated some wing to some library and they're just there, you know what I'm saying? Not really getting good grades, not really working for anything, and graduating with their degree and with their career that their parents have already set up for them. That is how that class of people gets ahead. It's not because they're so much smarter than, Black kids that live out in Southeast that go to these, charter schools that are in gifted programs. It's not because of that. It's all because of who they know, how much money their daddy has. So, like, when we say, like, we want to cancel student loan debt, number one, like, I'm a Black woman. My mother is a Black woman. My mother holds, I think it's like 4 or 5 degrees. I don't know if I'm giving her an extra one or not, but I'm sure she'd be happy to hear it. But my mom is in a lot of student loan debt. And, my mom works really hard. She has a lot of different streams of income. But just imagine what it would do for her and her finances as a Black woman if her student loan debt was canceled. What it would do for the racial wealth gap overall for Black people, because Black women hold the most student loan debt out of any demographic group. We're the most highly educated, and we're also the most underpaid. So if you're not going to fix wages, if you can't agree on how to get a $15 minimum wage, the least you can do for the racial wealth gap, for these Black women that are not getting a fair shake in the workplace, to actually cancel student loan debt and to make public college free, because there are so many jobs that we need right now that are just simply not being filled because people cannot afford to go to school. But then we all need to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. Which one is it? Are you giving us the pathways? Are you going to give us all a chance, the chance to education, which, as Kwame Ture says, knowledge is not owned by anybody. It's owned by all of us. It cannot be bought or sold. So who are these people to tell us that we don't deserve this knowledge because we can't afford it? Like, that's ridiculous. So we need to cancel student loan debt, and we need to make public college at least free. If these rich ass people want to go pay, all that money at a private institution to make themselves feel special, let them do that with their dollars. That's cool. Just don't affect me, my family, and my generational wealth by your racism.
I just want to, yeah, I completely agree with everything that you're saying. And I want to add on to it because from personal experience, I just said that I'm a recent grad. I went to a small white liberal private school in Massachusetts, and I didn't really know what I was doing. My parents went to school, but not in this country, so I wasn't I didn't really know too much about student loans and what I was signing. I just signed papers, just was signing stuff, and I had to go to college. That was just the only way. That was the only route. And I did. And now, like, what, 4 years later, 5 years later, I am like, my student loan payments are crazy because I have both private and public federal student loans. And I want to say that not only do they, like, like, make a clearer way for white people and rich people to get to college and have an education, they keep us back. They actively keep us back all the time with every law that they pass, with even making college an industry should not be like should not be a thing. Like you guys were saying, education is a right. It is a human right. Everybody should have access to that. And making that into a commodity and making education into an industry, a business, it contradicts the whole thing. And we don't have that in our constitution, which is why they get to do these things. But at the same time, back to your point about the private schools, even if they do only make federal schools, like public schools, free, they're still going to find ways to like bear us from getting all these high paying jobs, because still to this day now, like depending on what school you go to, your resume is looked at a different way. If you went to an Ivy League or like you went to a white school, that's a whole lot different than going from like a SUNY or a CUNY school. Like even if people don't say it, it is true. And also you have more resources in certain schools that you have in other schools, and that translates into our education system in general with public and private schools, just from like non-college, and how that also is like exploited, and how they purposely refuse to fund public schools so that people would turn more to our private schools, and like they're so like weeding out as much people of color as possible, that only a select few of us get to make it to college and get to make it to have better jobs and do all these things. So it's just purposely set up to get the maximum amount of white people and rich people up, and everybody else back down. Like only a select amount of us make it.
I
And
wanted
they
to
always
writing. Sorry, go ahead, Ahmed.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say they always find a way to blame the individual. Like if you go to college and you get your degree and you can't pay your student debt, they're like, oh, maybe you shouldn't have gone to college. But then if you didn't go to college, you would work a job like a working class job, blue collar job, and not get like a livable wage because the federal government hasn't raised the minimum wage in decades, and it's abysmal. Like they're always gonna find a way to blame the individual rather than the system. That's the system isn't like you're buying. Basically nowadays you go to college, you're just paying for the degree, you're not even paying for the education, you're teaching yourself. It's the whole public education system in America, at least after high school, is abysmal and needs to be reformed. It's just a for-profit system. It's not about education. They don't value education. They value how much money they can milk out of each individual student. Like even if you fail a class, the advisor will. I've heard this from like advisors. They won't like ask you to kick you out of college. No, they'll be like, oh, just retake it, because they just want to make more and more money off of you, because it's not a loss to them. You're just a dollar sign to them, and unfortunately, that's how it is now, and it can't stay that way. I'm already a student. I have student debt, but I don't want future generations that are like in high school now or middle school, like my younger siblings or any kids, to have to go through this BS. It's not sustainable and it's not fair to anyone.
The reason I wanted to jump right in is that like sometimes we think things are clear, and it's always good to say things because maybe we think everybody knows that, but they don't. I don't know if you see in that whole system of student loans and universities, the amount of corruption that there is in between the university and the price that you have to pay for it. And also, I don't see if it's clear how that your government wants you to not have education. And then I don't know if it's clear when you are going through school that they purposely want you to learn to be specific. Education in the US is based in the stricto sensu. It's Latin for like very specific, because I remember when the IMF wanted us in Brazil to sell the universities, to privatize the public universities. And they would say, like, countries like Brazil, developing countries, third world countries, should not have research universities. They should have specific, strict to census guided courses, so people could be specific and they could work in certain places for that one thing. And the way we do there is lato sensu. So we are pushed to research. Doesn't matter. Like, I studied performing arts. I'm graduated in that, and I also have a passage through psychology, and I published in at some point something with people from biology. So like it's a whole universe that has nothing to do with what is your first degree here and then you graduate. It's more like pushing you towards research and critical thinking. And I think that's the thing. Like, if people start developing critical thinking, the things that fly here in the US, they will stop right away. Because the reason we have to, like, just do a student loan strike, and the reason why I support, I don't have a dad, I didn't study here. So the reason why I support, and the reason I think we should have a strike, is that we will stop that, and that will push a change. And I always like to say that Affini quoted this quote to me and educated me on that. A revolution is made from a series of reforms that push the system until it breaks. So if we do the dad strike, that might push a change in the whole of the educational system. We're not just talking about liberating people from that, but yes, we need to do that because everybody in the US is in heavy debt. But it's also bringing questions and ideas, and oops, something needs to be changed. And the whole educational system in this country, in my opinion, as an outsider, has to be changed. And I think one of the ways to start with it, and it will be better for the economy. If you want to go capitalist, it's better for the economy if people are not in debt, so they can consume more instead of just paying for the debt. So it's clear to me that they're not even worried about the economy at this point. They're just worried in having us carrying the dominant class, right? Which is mostly why too. Nick, could you pull Hadj's article? And I want Hannah to talk to us about the strike too, as well. Because I think she has to go at some point.
Okay, I might just pass it back to Braxton and pass it to Fred to talk about the strike. I guess I'll start by saying two quick things, and I really apologize that I have to leave early. I just have a pre-existing meeting. What I would say about the strike is, first of all, I think we've been dropping an action network form. There are all kinds of ways to get involved, both in the strike team and the art and design team and the local actions team. So there are political action team, all kinds of ways to get involved. For the strike itself, this is what I would say. A student debt strike is unusual because it doesn't actually exercise power over the creditor. Somebody said it at the beginning, I think it was Ahmed, the federal government doesn't need our money, right? We haven't been paying them for 2 years. They haven't gone broke. And in fact, even before that, over half of everybody who had student debt never paid. So the government doesn't need our money. It's not like we're going to make them broke if we don't pay. But if we don't pay, we're keeping that money in our pockets. And that's real, right? So we want to think of creative ways, but that also shield people from some of the worst consequences until we're really ready to protect everybody and suffer those consequences collectively together. So I would just say, Braxton, you can say much more, but sign up on that Action Network form, especially if you're interested in striking. We have our next strategy session this coming Sunday, and I really apologize for leaving. Thanks so much for such a great show, and it's lovely to meet you all.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you for being here. So we can get to the article soon, but since Hannah gave Braxton and Fred, and I keep on butchering your name, Braxton, just want to hear from you.
Yeah, I'll just add, there are safe ways to get to $0 a month. Income-driven repayment plans often allow you to enroll in paying $0 a month. Administrative forbearance, as well as deferment, I think Hannah earlier mentioned enrolling in college. There's a Debt Collective member, Dr. Brooks. She is constantly re-enrolling in college so she doesn't have to pay on her student loans, right? And that's part of striking. A refusal to pay money to the Department of Education, who proves that we don't need it. So I think there's, I want to add another part to this leverage that I think that we can, or this power that I think we can leverage over the Department of Education, the Biden administration, and just a sense of political power. And I hate to just keep saying join the Action Network forum, but there's a strike team that's developing, and there's more, we can do more than just refuse to pay on our student loans to exert some level of power. So there's a Thomas, who is an individual who works at the Debt Collective, who is sort of taking a lead on this strike team, has talked about a variety of ways in which the Department of Education actually could, we say it's broken, but there's a way that we can break it even more. For example, disputing your student loans on your credit, on your actual credit line. If people did that en masse, that could possibly be a way in which we could start to bleed some of the money that these student loan servicers have. Student loan servicers are the actual companies that collect the debt payments. The Department of Education, the US government, doesn't actually collect on the debt. They pay private companies to do it. So some of these private companies are actually a bit vulnerable because they only have so many staffers. They only have so many staffers that can do the work for them. So, I wish I could really get into it, but I'm not quite clear on the exact technical roots, but there's a lot of ways that we can actually sort of really chip away at the power that the student loan servicers have. And that could be really bold in terms of moving us towards cancellation, right? If the student loan servicers don't actually have the tools they need to be able to collect on student loans, if they don't actually have if they can't actually hire people, if they actually can't, if they don't have the administrative capacity to collect on student loans because they're being hit in other types of ways, that could also be part of the, feather that weighs, that tips the scale in terms of getting us to have student debt cancellation. So it's more than just, refusing to pay. That's part of it, but there's some other strategies that we could also use, and we'll have to think about that collectively.
Fred, can you jump in and add it for us?
Yeah, no, I think what Braxton pointed out was great, and I think that we need everyone to kind of collectively come together and think of creative ideas, because the system is changing every day, especially right now with the administration really feeling the pressure of cancellation. And I'll also add that what's great about the Debt Collective in our campaign right now is there's a space for everyone. If you don't want to deal with electoral politics, then join the payment strike group or join the direct action group. There's really a space for everyone, no matter kind of where you are in that left spectrum, to really figure out what we can do to mobilize and to get to full cancellation. And I just wanted to note that, I love that cancellation is used because I think Debt Collective, we really refrain from using forgiveness, because, it's not your fault that you had to borrow all of this money so you could get a better education for yourself. So really it's cancellation. I think that it's really important to not budge off that messaging, because at the end of the day, all of it is predatory, all of it is unjust, and we won't stop until all of it is canceled. Look, I almost said forgiveness. Oh my goodness, but you know exactly what I meant. But yeah.
Naja has another article that I would like to pull up, Nick, and maybe have her comment on it. But before that, I wanted to say also that, like, it's not your fault. I love that you brought that up, Fred. It's not your fault that you owe money. It's this whole system made for you to be enslaved to it because they have to find ways to have us work. Um, if we don't work, the system breaks, right? That's why a general strike is a solution, because if we don't work, the system breaks. They don't have us being slaves to them anymore. And I think there is a culture that is like the whole credit point kind of situation, that somebody checks your points to see if you can rent a house. These are all to work in our brains in a psychological way that we should be ashamed of our debts. We should be ashamed of being poor. And this is such a disgusting lie that this government tells people here and in this culture, that is ashamed to be indebted. It's not, because it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you owe money, student money, university money, or healthcare money. Your government should be providing that to you, and you're taking it out of your pocket. You can never do it. You see the fees? Like, people get into hospitals and they, because they have COVID, is a pandemic, and they leave the hospital with a $160,000 kind of bill. Like, so it's not your fault. This culture of being ashamed of owning, like, of like, I owe money, therefore I'm ashamed, or this culture of being ashamed of being poor, the faster we break that inside of us, the freer we are from the system. I want to go back to Hadge's article that she just. Oh, I think it's kind of might be paid. So.
Of course it's fun. So you see this? This is like my point. You have to read an article, and the article is paid. Like, poor. You're poor. How bad? Like, but I just wanted to also comment on that, because you're exactly right. It's like, it's not fair that people that think that being poor is just like because of their own actions, when it's like poverty is a system that this country puts in place, and it's like on our taxes, on our money. So it's ridiculous that not only are we paying taxes all the time whenever you buy something, whenever you every year when you file taxes, and all these other ways we pay taxes in this country, and we're not even provided with the most basic stuff. And then you have to go in depth to get those basic stuff, like healthcare, education. So it's just a system that's very shallow. That's just, there's no way out. Yes, Alex M, you're literally forced into that, because the other option is what? Like, someone else was talking about how it's either you're homeless, and then they demonize the homeless, like, oh, these people are bad, like, or you just like have to be in that in order to like live your life and like just exist every day. And when Hannah was talking about Reagan, I like put two and two together, because I didn't realize that of course he was president when this whole thing started happening. Like, I was looking at the numbers of university costs, and everything started happening in the 80s, basically. And of course, that's fucking Reagan. I don't know if you can curse here. Sorry, it's not. But public university grew 300%, over 300%. Like, you could go to college for $2K a year, and now it's like more than that. Like, it's $10K. And private universities, on another hand, my university was up to $60K a year. And like, I can't remember who was saying, but the education is not even worth it. It is not education. It's about how to be a worker or a capitalist. It's either how to indoctrinate you into saying a worker, or just you are going to go and oppress other people. And that's what the education is. It is not really education in the sense of people learning things. And that also has to change. But yeah, it's ridiculous that we are entrapped into this. And I don't know if you still want me to comment on the article, but I just wanted to say that. The article just talks about how just more ways they keep us in debt is also that no matter how much you pay, in a lot of ways, you're still in debt. I don't know if people have noticed or like looked at like numbers and stuff, but because of the crazy interest rates and because of the fact that you don't even make enough money in the first place to pay off those loans, you are still in debt. It's a cycle. It's just a never-ending cycle. And sometimes, apparently, sometimes those loans can even go to your family if something happens to you. It just keeps you and your family into a cycle of dread as people of color, usually because we are the ones who, black and brown people, are the ones who need to have those in the first place because we don't have access to those things. So on top of them like not providing education, they're stealing from us every day, every fucking second. They're stealing from us from our taxes, giving it to each other in private equity, giving it to each other in private businesses, and then telling us that it's our fault that we're poor, that we can't afford all these things, that we're not working hard enough. And that, like you said, Josiah, is what people need to get through their head, that this is nobody's fault. They are the ones who are keeping us indebted, and we just need to say no and just understand that this was never our fault in the first place. This system feeds off on our pain and our suffering every day. That was all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I think it's there is a like a law in Brazil that a for-profit company cannot be associated with public whatever, in this case public universities. And then there is a for-profit company that does student assistancy, like they have housing and food, and they charge per semester 100 reais, which is like right now $20. We would go to the capital of the state. We would go to the DC of Brazil and like not pay. We would go and strike to not pay $20 per semester, because the moment you say yes to that, you are saying yes to corruption, because we pay taxes, and the taxes should be an investment that a human being does in their own country so they can exist in there. um they're interested to hear in hearing from Ahmed, Fred, Braxton, and Afeni, please.
Yeah, I also wanted to jump in real quick and just say that if all student loan debt was canceled, it would bring in at least I don't have the exact figure off the top of my head, but it would be at least $1 billion into the U.S. economy every year. So like, just think about that. Like, it would help the economy too. So the whole like, oh, you need to be in debt is just such a myth. All they're doing is just protecting the creditors and the lenders like Nelnet and Navient and all the like Sally Mae too. And then another thing I wanted to add on was maybe I'll come back to it. I think I forgot. Sorry.
I think if anyone to add something as well.
I know he said Nelnet, and I just had PTSD. But whew, I was, you hear like the one of the names. You're like, oh my god, they still trying to come up my bank account. Anyway, but yeah, I just want to like really state the fact that like when you die, somebody has to take over your student loan debt. Like that's wild as shit. Like when you die, if you happen to like die early, somebody has to take over your student loan debt. What if they can't afford it? What if like you were the first generation, first generation college grad, and they can't afford it? Then what? Oh my gosh. Who is going like this? Anyway, like I just feel like because we're not having the real conversations about like what the consequences of this is, and like on a mass scale, like people are feeling feeling individual shame. And a big part of organizing for me is like really just trying to educate people on the fact that like this really is not on you. Like this is something that the government has put in place in order to prey on the fact that they know that education is the only real method to survival in this country. If you are not educated in this country, it is very hard. It's very, very hard for you to gain any capital. It is very, very hard for you to get opportunities. It's very, very hard for you to get rubber stamped at jobs. Black people on average, black people with black sounding names get called back less for interviews than white people with felonies with white sounding names. So imagine not having a degree on top of that. Like it's genuinely rigged against us, and it's genuinely rigged against Black people and other people of color in this country. And I remember watching the short film that I think like the Debt Collective or like Asher Taylor had something to do with. Asher Taylor was like on this Democracy Now! Interview, and it's called "Your Debt Is Someone Else's Asset," and like this, what we're talking about, debt cancellation, it's happened before. It is not impossible. Like when I watched that short film, like I learned so much about the history of debt cancellation and of jubilees, and about the fact that this is not some new idea that we're just coming up with out of this, like out of thin air. Like this is something that's happened from generations on generations for thousands of years, because people know that debt is something that is like debilitating. And it's so hard to do anything or have any upward mobility if you have debt. I mean, I'm sure they probably didn't call it upward mobility 1,000 years ago, but whatever it is, whatever freedom looked like for them back then, debt was not a part of that. So, you know, I just really think like the more we can share this information out, the more that we can share the fact that doing direct action, like doing a debt strike, doing direct action, like actually showing up in DC, boots on the ground, ready to yell at Joe Biden, ready to talk to all these people and all these big bankers in New York, because we definitely need to go ahead and talk to some of them too. A lot of them own this debt. And let them know that we're not gonna we're not gonna take this shit, and we are stronger if we actually stand together. And even if you don't want to sit up here and vote your way out of a crisis, I don't think that works. If you are somebody who's with electoral politics, also understand that direct action at this point is necessary. We've tried electoral politics with no real direct action. This shit ain't working. Okay, it's not working. We've sang, we've marched, we've picketed, we've done all that. It's not working. So now it's time to take it up a notch. It's time to withhold our labor. It's time to withhold our money, because we are the valuable assets in this economy, period. All the debt that we owe to these people, that is their value. And if we withhold our labor, if we withhold our capital from these motherfuckers, they won't have anything. They won't have anything, period.
There's so much I want to add here, and I'll pass it to the panel. There's a great point that Ahmed and Fred was talking about. I definitely got to dive more into detail with maybe Ahmed and Fred later on when we're talking about the failure of our education system, what the education system is designed to do. And ever since I became radicalized and started learning more about history, I talk about this all the time. I toss everything I learned in public school, even in a lot of my college, I toss out because I learned it's just propaganda. When you look at Harvard elites, they're not smart. Like Yale graduates, they're not smart. They just memorized and mastered Western propaganda. What's that law? What's that dude name? Fuck, why I'm black on the name? The Harvard law professor dude, Alan Dershowitz. Yeah, so he was a Harvard law professor for 50 years, so well established in elite circles. But if you ask him about foreign policy, he is a neocon to the highest order. That's what they breed. They don't teach you intelligence. They teach you propaganda. So when you become a Harvard lawyer, that's what you do. You hear the liberal elite circles. They all push Russiagate. They all push war. So they training you to think this way. And when you look at our public education system, and it was designed by the Rockefellers and a lot of capitalists when it was initially reformed in the early 1900s. And they was open about this because back then they didn't give a fuck. They was like, we don't want to create critical thinkers. And this came directly from the Rockefellers camp. We don't want to create critical thinkers. We want to create obedient worker ants. That's why they train you to go to school 8 to 5. Wait, you get trained, wait in line. They train you to get ready for the workplace, not to be a critical thinker, not to be someone who's well-adjusted in society. If you think I'm wrong, why aren't there advanced classes on finance? Why is there not advanced classes on managing your budget? Like these kind of things that we didn't have. We didn't have classes warning about student loans. That's just one part. And I want to get to the second part as well, because there's something else that you guys brought up as well, how canceling student loan debt would be great for the economy. And Ahmed also brought up the means testing that Biden and the liberals do. And you guys understand the means testing is so frustrating because it's counterproductive. So we have read studies my entire life that have shown that if you cancel student loan debt, it will boost the economy. Now let's think about this for a second, and you can realize how deeply unserious the capitalist neoliberal ideology is. Their mindset is we want a means test to save money. But according to the study, when you cancel all student loan debt, that means more people have money to spend, including the privileged bourgeoisie class that liberals say, oh, we can't cancel their student loans. So if you became a doctor or a lawyer, you got student loans, they don't want you to cancel all your loans because you're a doctor or a lawyer. But if you cancel your loan, they become productive spenders. The same with the working class, that you cancel all their loans. So if you cancel up to 10,000, you defeat the entire purpose. Yes, you cancel. Yes, you cancel up to 10,000, but you still have money that the working class is not allowed to spend. That can't spend because they're still making payments. You guys see how means testing defeats the entire purpose of raising student loan debt? And now let's explore the ideology of usury and student loans. How does it make sense? I'll pass it to the panel. Does it make sense if you're against canceling student loans? If you're one of the people that are like, oh, well, I pay my student loans, dog. Why should I support you, motherfucker? You got to stay in debt. You got to stay in debt. I was in debt. That's what they say. That's what they say. So let's analyze this in terms of economics. And this is why trickle-down economic people are deeply unserious. How does it make sense to put your strongest, most reliable spending block in debt? Think about it. Who are the most reliable spenders? People aged 25 through 40. So in our society, these people go to college, they become lawyers, teachers, doctors, nurses, etc. But instead of producing into the economy like they should, 25 to 40, getting houses, taking care of kids, they're paying debt on money that goes nowhere productive in our society. How does that even make sense? It doesn't. But I want to pass it to the panel because there's so much that you guys brought up, and I wanted to kind of add my take to it. So anyone have anything want to add, and then we go back to Josana?
I just wanted to say real quick that we're specifically talking about Joe Biden and Democrats because they pretend to care about this. Republicans don't even pretend to care, so I'm not going to bother talking about them. Like, that's a whole waste of time. So
I want to bring Braxton on.
Yeah, what we always talk about at the Debt Collective is that debt is a tool of social control, and it is a mechanism to discipline people, to discipline the 99% specifically. So, kind of getting to your point, Nick, one of the funniest things we hear is people who say, "You just pay back your debt, right? Just pay back what you owe." A lot of people have paid back way more than what they actually owe, or what we're told we owe, right? People who have an initial principal or balance of $20,000, $30,000, but have actually paid $60,000 or $75,000 and still owe tens of thousands of dollars more. So there's actually not, the incentive is to keep people in debt for as long as possible, not because they need the money, right? The Department of Education doesn't need the money. The federal government doesn't need our money, but as a tool of social control, as a means of keeping the 99% from not living a dignified life, and to keep us suppressed, to keep us oppressed. So I think it's important for us to understand that debt as a tool is about our finances, but it's also about rejecting the tool of social control. And so that's why we encourage people to, someone like me, for example, just briefly, I probably qualify, I know I qualify for an income-driven repayment plan that is as low as $0 a month. So I could pay $0 a month, or I could try to put $100 a month down if that's something that I have, right? I think what we want to encourage people to really consider is, let's say you're someone like me, you have that $100 or even $200 to put down per month. That balance is going to probably keep increasing because this is a debt trap. And so one, very a radical political act that you could take, which the government actually incentivizes, because this capitalist system is so much of a joke that they have to even incentivize not paying back your loans because they know that they don't actually expect to get any money back. One radical political act that people can take is to strike your debt. And so if you're someone like me who says, I think I actually have that $100 a month, but instead of paying on my loans, I'm actually going to intentionally enroll in a $0 a month student loan payment program to say, I refuse to pay, right? Whether you can pay or not, you're saying I won't pay. And so our book, the Debt Collective has a book called Can't Pay, Won't Pay. It's on Haymarket. I would encourage folks to check it out. But that's essentially what we're saying is to say, actually refuse to pay. We don't encourage people to default because those consequences are so hurtful, financially devastating. But if you can, to enroll in a $0 a month program or administrative forbearance or defer your student loans or re-enroll in college or do all of these other tactics that you can to not pay on your student loans to get to your point, Nick, to reject this tool of social control. So I guess I'll leave it there, but it's a tool of social control and we can reject that.
Well said, brother. Well said. I've been deferring my loans ever since I left college. I'm 30. I defer these motherfuckers as many times as I can. Like sometimes, like I wish I wasn't always great at like strategy, but every once in a while I'll pay like once or twice, and I'm like, hell no, fuck this, I'll defer it. And so I was able to keep up appearance that way. So I was like, all right, I try to pay it, but it's too high. It's too high. I defer it. I'll go a few months not paying. Now, sorry, I can't. Sorry, shit got rough. Shit got rough. I'm paying it. I go through that cycle every year. But go ahead, Braxton.
No, I'm saying I've deferred too. I haven't paid a dime on my student loans. I used to say yet at the end of that sentence, but I don't anymore. I haven't paid a dime on my student loans. And if you have federal student loans and because of the federal pause, you're on strike right now. So we're saying continue that strike.
I'm telling them Biden promised me he's going to cancel my student loans, so I'm not paying. I was like, yo, you better hit Joe Biden up, ask him where your check at, because I think like the way it works is Biden like paid them motherfuckers off, right? So it's like, don't hit me up, call Biden, be like, yeah, you say you got us, bro. You say you're gonna cancel this debt. Where our check? So don't hit me up. That's my mindset. I'm gonna tell the motherfuckers that. So I'm just talking shit now. Josiah, what you?
I'm gonna put a hashtag in the comments. Hashtag call Biden.
Yeah, I'll call Biden. Don't call me, man. They said they was gonna cancel it.
Seriously. Right. Go ahead, Afeni, please.
I'm gonna say, yeah, I've gotten my tax return revoked by my student loans once already. Let me tell you something. Revoke Biden's tax return, okay? Go ahead and take it out of his presidential salary because I needed that money, okay? He don't need it. I need it. Run that back to me because at this point, like, just like Nick was saying, if he's responsible for it, then you need to go ahead, take that shit up with him and his tax return and all of that because, yeah. And I'm sure Biden gets a tax return because all those rich people get a fucking check back from the government somehow, some way. Please.
No, they do. They do. This whole pandemic has been literally, in my opinion, the biggest wealth transfer in this country because they keep taking
not an opinion, by the way. That's a fact. But go ahead.
Yeah. Right? Because they keep taking away all these benefits. Like they took away unemployment. They took away so many other benefits. But then you see how they're giving millions to businesses, millions to corporations, to arms dealers, to people who don't even need this money. It's a waste. They're keeping us. It's a trap, like you guys were saying. It's a mental trap at the same time. Like imagine having just like that debt that's forever going to be there mentally. That just keeps you in check. That keeps you in check. You're going to have to go to work. You're going to have to do all these things in order to be able to pay that debt. So it's just really, I don't have anything else to add because you all said it, but I just wanted to say that it is exactly true. And they do it every time. Every time you read these bills that Congress passed, they get paid thousands of dollars a week to tell us that we do not deserve $600 a month or whatever the fuck it was, the number was. They were lying. Biden lied about canceling student loans and then lied about every other thing. And we're just going to let them get away with it like it's nothing? No. Like everybody has him on fucking camera. Like you can't say I didn't say that. People have him on camera saying that he was going to cancel stuff. Not even 10,000. He's canceled the whole thing in my opinion, obviously. But like it's on camera that this man was saying this. So nobody could tell me that America's a democracy, because what they say that they're doing and what they're doing is not the same thing. Like if it was really truly a democracy, why are we still fighting about this shit? Why are they not giving us what we want? If it's a democracy, they should be giving, like, begging and telling us, asking us what we want to do. It's because this government doesn't work for us. And I want people to understand that this is a government or corporations of insurances, private businesses. They are here to facilitate ways of us, of our labor and our money to go to them. Like, that's literally all this is. This is what capitalism is. And if only people understand that, we're never going to get away from this. It's going to be an endless cycle.
I remembered what I wanted to say earlier. It was just a quick point. Like the university I went to, the university president got paid almost $500,000 a year. That's more than what the U.S. president's annual salary is. Why are you getting paid that much? And then if you look at it that way, you see like the whole system is designed just for profit for the people up top, and then they don't really care about the actual quality of your education or what you're learning or any of that, or like if you can even afford to go into that debt. They just care about their bottom line and milking you for as much money that you can take out on loans as you possibly could.
So just to add and let you guys know how absurd this society that we live in, that is not an accident. Like, this is active class warfare. And that's why I just said that. And you hit the nail on the head when you said it was a larger transfer of wealth. Not an opinion. That's a fact. That's quite, you guys know Big Pharma is making $1,000 per second, not per minute, per second right now. Pfizer, Moderna, all of them, they're making $1,000 per second, but we can't get health care. We can't cancel student loan debt. We can't end homelessness, but they're making $1,000. You guys know there have been 10 new Big Pharma billionaires created just last year. Not CEOs, not 10 Big Pharma CEOs, 10 Big Pharma executives, meaning people who have stock, who their Big Pharma grown so much, 10 new billionaires have been created, but you can't get health care. You got to pay your student loans. You got to see how this is class warfare. When are we going to fight back? That's what I'm asking. They've been wasting it my entire life.
Just before we continue, Braxton and Fred have to go to another meeting, and I would like them to promote the action. And Afeni has to go too. I think we might end the panel.
Yeah, we probably gotta wrap up because
we should wrap up. So
it was a good show. It was a good show.
we're gonna go around and have some final thoughts. And I just want to thank you all so much for being here with me. I'm new to this, so I'm like learning how to do these things. Thank you
did great
for being here with me. Thank you for jumping in, Nick. Thank you, Afeni, for teaching me. I am going to get better, and I want to be boots on the ground, because that's what I am. Like in Brazil, we are fighting. We don't compartmentalize fight. We just go ahead and fight together. And I want to be in the streets with y'all. So if you have like what's happening, what's going on, let us know and we can support you.
Let's do Braxton and Fred first.
Sure. I really want to encourage people to go to debtcollective.org. There you can find all of our events. We're having a huge action in Washington, D.C. on April 4th of this year. That's also where you can join the student loan debt strike. That's where you can get involved with other action teams that are planning other organizing tactics to pressure the current administration to cancel student loan debt and create a pathway towards tuition-free college like we have in Brazil and other countries. So if you go to debtcollective.org, you can find us there. We're also at Strike Debt on Twitter and the Debt Collective on Instagram. If you want to, for folks on social media, you can join us, get plugged in there, and feel free to DM us and send us a message with any ideas. But if you go to debtcollective.org, you should be able to find everything. So thanks so much for having me.
Me as well. And yeah, just, if you go to the site, you'll find Action Network Forum. And we would love everyone to join us April 4th in DC. We're really going to turn up and, hopefully do some scheming and, get a little rowdy. So, yeah, it was nice meeting y'all, and look forward to connecting again.
Thank you for all the work you do. I guess I'll have to move to DC because, like, people are in the streets in DC, man. I always tell Afeni that I want to be there. I wanna be- Thank you all for being here, and I want to thank Red Wine, Blue Moon Red Wine, because she helped me to get in touch with you guys. So, like, it's like I
Yeah,
want to
big
do
shout out
that
to her.
with that collective. I have to have them on.
Yeah,
Afeni now.
yeah, Blue Moon Red Wine. I just want to give a shout out to her because she did a student loan debt marathon on her channel not too long ago. So she's been leading on this issue. So big shout out. Afeni, you about to say something?
Oh yeah, I'm about to say yeah. So I'm about to head out. Thank you guys so much. Hopefully I get to meet Fred and Braxton in person in April. Because I'll actually be there. I'll be organizing there. So I hope that hopefully we can bring some people together. Hopefully we can bring some of the local DC community, especially the Black orgs in. But we'll talk about that more. And yeah, you can follow me on everything at Red is Ari. Please donate to my grassroots organization at Freedom Fighters DC, at FFDC 202, excuse me, at FFDC 202 on Twitter. And yeah, like I'm about to be in the streets. So if you ever want to meet me in the streets, period.
Yeah, Braxton and Fred. I'm also a DC local, so I'd love to actually meet you guys in person
We have to go to
on April
DC now.
4th.
Everybody's from DC. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just saying everybody's from DC. We have to go to DC now.
So go ahead, Ahmed. Say your final thoughts and where people can find you, and yeah.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and it was an honor speaking with the panel. I've learned so much from all of you, and you can follow me on Twitter, leftistguy95. We're trying to create some. We have some specifically student loan strike, a Twitter account, and a Instagram, a Reddit, and a Facebook page, and I will retweet that on my page because I just don't remember all the ats off the top of my head right now. It's a little late in Egypt right now, so I'm not 100%. But yeah, if you just, I'm gonna retweet it soon. And again, thank you for having me and letting me speak.
Thank you for connecting from such far place. Haja, please.
Quickly, I talk a lot, but I think the ad is student debt X, and that's the icon that I have on my profile pic, and I think that's the same everywhere. So please follow that page. You can follow me on Twitter, Lord Night Witch. People never know what it is, but the Night Witches were they were a group of Soviet female aviator fighters who were just bombing the Nazis, and I think that's really cool. So that's why that's my ad.
Thank you, girl.
They're amazing. They're amazing. Like anybody who's fighting the Nazis is amazing. But yeah, like I just want to emphasize what everybody says and say that the only way we can fight this is by withholding our labor and money and striking. Like that's the only collective power that we have as a class, and we need to take advantage of it and do it now because we don't have that much time. Just in general, like also global warming, like we do not have time to play. We need to get our shit together because I believe we all deserve to live the life that the capitalists are living without all the oppression. We all deserve all these things. We deserve education. We deserve food. We deserve everything in the world, especially when it's possible. Like there's no need for poverty and there's no need for capitalism to exist in this planet. But yeah, that was all.
Thank you so much. Savvy just popped up. Hi, Savvy. We about to go. Thank you so much for being here. I am on Twitter, but no, don't follow me on Twitter. Just go ahead, find your community. Organizing is as simple as having a conversation. Start a conversation with your neighbors. Better than following me on Twitter. Start a conversation with the homeless person. Stop ignoring people that are asking you for money. Even if you don't have money to give, look them in the eyes, bring back their humanity. Let's look each other in the eyes. Let's bring back our humanity that's being stolen from us every day. And that's the only way we are divine, as if we connect with our humanity. I love you all. Thank you all for being here. And me and Afini will be doing bi-weekly spaces on Twitter to continue the conversations. And Nick, thank you for holding here with me because I was like, I don't know.
Deshauna hit me up out of nowhere. I'm like, man, I got your back. You know I got your back. I'll be back on later tonight. This is therapy for me, so I got a lot of ranting to do. So I'll be back later tonight. If you want to join me with Josana, wink, wink. But anyway, I like doing my solo streams. So check us out tonight. Thank you guys for watching. Revolutionary Blackout. Sign out. Take care, guys.
Bye.